The golden sun hung suspended over the barren horizon, casting long shadows across the dusty trail where Theresa Montgomery lay bleeding, her life ebbing away with each shallow breath. She had never imagined her journey west would end like this, robbed, beaten, and abandoned in the merciless desert of the Mojave. The year was 1876, and the promise of a new life had turned into what would likely be her final moments on Earth. Adam Jennings pulled his hat lower against the relentless afternoon sun as his horse plodded along the trail toward Keeler. The small mining settlement nestled at the edge of Owens Lake in California had been his destination for 3 days now, and he was eager to arrive before nightfall. His cattle drive had ended in Carson City, and with his pockets full of honest pay, he was headed to visit his cousin who had struck modest success in the borax mines. The trail curved around a rocky outcropping, and that's when he saw her, a splash of faded blue calico against the dusty earth, unmoving save for the slight flutter of fabric in the desert breeze. Adam's heart quickened as he spurred his horse forward. "Hello there," he called, receiving no response. Dismounting swiftly, Adam approached the figure carefully, his hand hovering near his holstered Colt. Bandits were known to use all manner of tricks in these parts, but this was no trick. A young woman lay crumpled on her side, her face bruised and swollen, dried blood caking her hairline and the corner of her mouth. Her dress was torn and dusty, and beside her lay an emptied carpet bag, its contents scattered and picked over. "Madam, can you hear me?" Adam knelt beside her, gently turning her to assess her injuries. Her skin burned with fever despite the approaching evening chill. A weak moan escaped her cracked lips, her eyelids fluttering but not opening. Adam's jaw set with determination. "I'm going to help you, madam. You're going to be all right." Working quickly, Adam gathered what few of her belongings remained: a tattered photograph, a small Bible with the name Theresa Montgomery inscribed inside, and a broken hairbrush. He fashioned a makeshift travois from branches and his bedroll, securing it to his horse. "Easy now," he murmured as he lifted her onto the travois, wincing at how light she felt in his arms. Whatever had happened to her, she'd been without proper food and water for days. Keeler was still a good 3 hours' ride, and the sun was beginning to set. Adam knew the woman wouldn't survive the night in the desert. She needed shelter, water, and medical attention immediately. "Hold on, Miss Montgomery," he said, though he wasn't certain she could hear him. "I'm not giving up on you." Adam led his horse toward a small canyon he'd passed earlier, where he recalled seeing a shepherd's shelter carved into the rock face. It wasn't much, but it would provide protection from the night and the predators that came with it. The shelter was, as he remembered it, a shallow cave with a crude stone wall built across the entrance, leaving just enough room for a door. Inside, there was a simple hearth and enough space to lay the woman down. Adam worked quickly, starting a fire and heating water from his canteen. He cleaned her face gently, revealing features that might have been beautiful without the swelling and bruising. She was young, perhaps 25, with auburn hair that would have been lustrous if not matted with blood and dust. As he dabbed at a particularly deep cut on her temple, her eyes suddenly fluttered open. They were a startling shade of green, clouded with pain and fear. "Who?" she gasped, attempting to shrink away from his touch. "Easy, miss," Adam said softly, showing his palms in a gesture of peace. "My name's Adam Jennings. I found you on the trail. You're hurt bad, but you're safe now." Her eyes darted around frantically before settling back on his face. "They took everything," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Save your strength," Adam urged, offering her water. He supported her head as she took small sips. "Were you headed to Keeler?" She managed a weak nod before grimacing in pain. I'll get you there, but you need rest first. Those men who did this, they're long gone. You're safe with me, I promise." She studied him for a long moment, seeming to gauge whether she could trust him. Something in his steady gaze must have reassured her, for she relaxed slightly. "Theresa," she whispered. "My name is Theresa Montgomery. Rest now, Miss Montgomery. We'll talk more when you're stronger." She drifted back into unconsciousness, but her breathing seemed steadier now. Adam settled by the fire, preparing a simple broth from his provisions. As he watched her sleep, he couldn't help but wonder what had brought a woman like her to this desolate stretch of wilderness alone. The night passed slowly. Adam dozed fitfully, waking often to check on his charge. By morning, Theresa's fever had worsened. She muttered deliriously, sometimes crying out against unseen assailants. "No, please, I have nothing more," she whimpered. Adam bathed her forehead with cool water. "You're safe now," he repeated, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. "I won't let anything happen to you." He knew he needed to get her to Keeler, to a proper doctor. As dawn broke, he carefully bundled her back onto the travois and set out. The morning sun climbed higher as they traveled, the heat intensifying with each passing hour. Adam stopped frequently to offer Theresa water and check her condition. Each time, he found himself increasingly worried by her deteriorating state. By midday, the small settlement of Keeler came into view, a cluster of wooden buildings shimmering in the heat haze beside the vast expanse of Owens Lake. Adam had never been so relieved to see a town. "We made it, Miss Montgomery," he said, glancing back at her still form. "Just hold on a little longer." As they approached the town, Adam called out to the first person he saw, a young boy playing in front of the general store. "Boy, where's the doctor in this town?" The child pointed down the street. "End of the road, mister. White house with the green door." Adam thanked him and hurried on, drawing curious glances from the townspeople as he passed with the unconscious woman in tow. The doctor's house was exactly as described. Adam pounded on the door urgently. A middle-aged man with spectacles and shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows opened the door, taking in the scene before him with a practiced eye. "What happened?" he asked, already moving to help Adam with the travois. "Found her on the trail yesterday, about half a day's ride from here. Looks like bandits attacked her. She's had a fever all night and she's barely conscious." The doctor nodded grimly. "Bring her inside, quickly." They carried Theresa into a small examination room where Adam gently laid her on a clean bed. "I'm Dr. Howard Miller," the physician said as he began examining Theresa's injuries. "And you are Adam Jennings. I was on my way to visit family here when I found her." Dr. Miller's fingers probed Theresa's ribs, eliciting a moan of pain even in her semi-conscious state. "Several broken ribs, severe dehydration, possible internal bleeding," he muttered, more to himself than to Adam. "She's been out there for days by the look of it." "Will she survive?" Adam asked, his voice tight. The doctor looked up, his expression grave. "Hard to say. The next 24 hours will tell." He paused, studying Adam. "You did right by her bringing her in. Most men might have left her, figuring it was too late." Adam shook his head. "I couldn't do that." "Well, she's in my hands now. You can go about your business, Mr. Jennings." But Adam found he couldn't move toward the door. "If it's all the same to you, Doc, I'd like to stay a while, just to know if she makes it." Dr. Miller's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded. "Suit yourself. There's coffee in the kitchen. This will take some time." For hours, Adam waited as the doctor worked. He paced the small waiting area, occasionally peering through the doorway to see Dr. Miller cleaning wounds, binding ribs, and administering medicines. Night had fallen by the time the doctor emerged, wiping his hands on a towel. "She's stable for now," he said. I've set her ribs as best I can and treated the external wounds. The fever's my main concern. It suggests infection. I've given her something to help, but now we wait." "Can I see her?" Adam asked. Dr. Miller hesitated, then nodded, briefly. "Then you should get some rest yourself. The Pioneer Hotel down the street has clean rooms." Adam entered the sickroom quietly. Theresa lay on the bed, her face now clean but still discolored with bruises. Her breathing was shallow but regular, her skin less flushed than before. He approached the bed, removing his hat respectfully. "Miss Montgomery," he said softly, "I don't know if you can hear me, but you're with the doctor now. You're going to be all right." To his surprise, her eyelids fluttered open, those same green eyes finding his face. "You stayed?" she whispered hoarsely. "Of course I did," Adam replied, surprised she remembered him. "Why?" Her question was barely audible. Adam considered the question. Why had he stayed? He hardly knew this woman. "I suppose I wanted to make sure you were in good hands," he said finally. "I couldn't just leave without knowing." A ghost of a smile touched her lips before her eyes closed again. Adam left the sickroom feeling strangely lighter despite his exhaustion. At the doctor's insistence, he made his way to the Pioneer Hotel, where he secured a room for the night. Despite his fatigue, sleep eluded him as he thought about the woman he'd rescued and the viciousness that had been visited upon her. Morning found Adam back at Dr. Miller's door. The physician appeared unsurprised to see him. "She had a rough night," Dr. Miller reported, ushering him inside. "The fever broke around dawn, which is a good sign." "Is she awake?" Adam asked, in and out. "She's been asking for you, though. The man who found me, she says." Adam felt an unexpected warmth at the doctor's words. "May I see her?" Dr. Miller nodded. "Just don't tire her. She needs rest." When Adam entered the sickroom this time, Theresa was propped up slightly against the pillows. Her face remained bruised, but her eyes were clearer, and some color had returned to her cheeks. "Mr. Jennings," she said, her voice still weak but steadier than before. "Doctor Miller said you were here yesterday, too." Adam took a seat beside the bed. "I wanted to make sure you were recovering. You saved my life." It wasn't a question, but a simple statement of fact. Anyone would have done the same, Adam demurred. "No," Theresa said with surprising firmness. "They wouldn't have. I owe you a debt I can never repay." "You don't owe me anything, Miss Montgomery. I'm just glad I found you in time." A shadow passed over her face. "Those men, they took everything. My money, my father's watch, even the deed to my property." "Property? In Keeler?" Adam asked. She nodded weakly. "My uncle left me his claim. I was coming to take possession of it. The deed was in my bag." Her voice trailed off and tears welled in her eyes. "Do you remember anything about the men who attacked you?" Adam asked gently. Theresa closed her eyes, her brow furrowing. "3 of them. One had a scar across his cheek. Another wore a distinctive silver belt buckle shaped like a rattlesnake. The leader. He had a black duster and a voice like gravel." Adam nodded, committing the descriptions to memory. "And when did this happen?" 2 days before you found me, I think. They left me for dead." Her voice broke on the last word. "You're stronger than they knew," Adam said quietly. Theresa's eyes met his, a flicker of gratitude in their depths. "Dr. Miller says I should recover fully given time." "That's good news." Adam hesitated, then asked, "Do you have family here in Keeler? Someone I should notify?" She shook her head. "No one. My Uncle Samuel was my last living relation. That's why I came west when I received word of his passing." "You traveled all the way from?" "Philadelphia," she supplied. "I was a seamstress there. When Uncle Samuel's lawyer wrote that I had inherited his claim, I sold what little I had and came west." A bitter smile twisted her lips. "Now I have nothing again, not even proof that the claim is mine." Adam leaned forward. "Miss Montgomery, I'd like to help you. If you can describe the deed, perhaps we could speak to the land office." "Why would you do that?" she asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "Because it's the right thing to do," Adam said simply. Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Miller, who entered carrying a tray with broth and tea. "That's enough visiting for now, Mr. Jennings. My patient needs nourishment and rest." Adam stood, placing his hat back on his head. "I'll return tomorrow, Miss Montgomery, if that's all right with you." Theresa nodded, her expression grateful. "I would like that very much, Mr. Jennings." As Adam walked through Keeler later that day, his mind was occupied with Theresa's plight. He located his cousin's home easily enough. Benjamin Jennings was well known in the small community for his work at the borax mines. The reunion was warm, with Benjamin and his wife, Martha, insisting Adam stay with them rather than at the hotel. Over dinner, Adam recounted the story of finding Theresa on the trail. "Montgomery, you say?" Benjamin mused, stroking his beard. "That would be Samuel Montgomery's niece, I'd wager. Old Sam passed last month. Heart gave out right in the middle of Harvey's saloon." "She said he left her his claim," Adam confirmed. Benjamin nodded. "That he did. Wasn't worth much while he was alive, just a small silver prospect that never really panned out. But there's been talk lately. New survey suggests there might be a rich vein running through that part of the mountains." Martha clicked her tongue. That poor woman, to come all this way only to be attacked, and without the deed she'll have trouble proving ownership. "That's what I'm concerned about," Adam admitted. "Especially if the claim might be valuable. You think the robbery wasn't random?" Benjamin asked, his expression sharpening. "It's a possibility. Miss Montgomery mentioned 3 men, one with a scarred face, one with a rattlesnake belt buckle, and a leader in a black duster." Benjamin and Martha exchanged a look. "That sounds like the Blackridge gang," Benjamin said grimly. "They've been causing trouble in these parts for months. Started with small robberies, but they've grown bolder." "And you think they might have targeted Miss Montgomery specifically?" Adam asked. "If they knew about the potential value of Samuel's claim, they might have," Benjamin confirmed. "Land disputes in mining towns can get ugly, Adam. Without that deed, she's vulnerable." Adam's jaw set with determination. "Then we need to help her secure her rightful property." The next morning, Adam returned to Dr. Miller's house with renewed purpose. He found Theresa sitting up in bed, her auburn hair neatly braided, though her face was still mottled with fading bruises. "You look better today," he observed, smiling as he entered. "Dr. Miller says I'm healing faster than he expected," she replied. "Though it will be some time before I'm fully recovered." Adam pulled up a chair. "Miss Montgomery, I've been thinking about your situation. My cousin Benjamin knows of your uncle's claim. He believes there might be a way to establish your ownership even without the original deed." Hope flickered in her eyes. "How?" "The land office keeps records, and if your uncle left a will naming you as his heir, that would help your case. Benjamin knows most folks in town. He's willing to help verify your identity." Theresa's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Jennings, why are you doing all this for me? You've already saved my life." Adam shifted uncomfortably under her grateful gaze. "I don't like seeing injustice, Miss Montgomery. Those men took what was rightfully yours. I aim to help you get it back." "Please call me Theresa," she said softly. "After all you've done, formalities seem unnecessary." "Theresa," he agreed with a small smile. "And I'm Adam." Over the next few days, Adam divided his time between visiting Theresa and working with Benjamin to investigate her claim. They discovered that Samuel Montgomery had indeed filed a proper will with the town's only lawyer, explicitly naming his niece as his sole heir. The land office confirmed the existence of the mining claim, though they required additional proof of Theresa's identity, before transferring ownership. A week after her arrival in Keeler, Dr. Miller declared Theresa well enough to leave his care, though she would need continued rest to fully recover. "Where will you go?" Adam asked her as she prepared to leave the doctor's house. Uncertainty clouded her face. "I hadn't thought that far ahead. I suppose I could inquire about rooms at the hotel, though I have little money left." "My cousin and his wife have offered you a place in their home," Adam said. "Martha has prepared a room for you. They live comfortably, and there's plenty of space." Theresa looked overwhelmed by the kindness. "I couldn't impose, it's not an imposition," Adam assured her. "Martha is delighted at the prospect of female company, and it would give us time to sort out your claim properly." In the end, Theresa accepted the offer gratefully. Benjamin and Martha Jennings welcomed her into their home with genuine warmth, treating her as an honored guest rather than a charity case. As the days passed, Theresa's strength returned gradually. She insisted on helping Martha with household tasks despite the older woman's protests, and in the evenings, she would join the family in the parlor, where Adam often read aloud from the newspaper or one of Benjamin's books. Adam found himself increasingly drawn to Theresa. Her resilience impressed him deeply despite the trauma she had endured. She rarely complained and maintained a quiet dignity that he admired. As her physical injuries healed, her natural beauty emerged. Her auburn hair shone in the lamplight, and her green eyes sparkled when she smiled, which she did more frequently as time went on. 2 weeks after her rescue, Adam escorted Theresa to the land office to formally claim her inheritance. The clerk, a fussy man named Harold Winters, examined the documents with meticulous care. "Everything appears to be in order, Miss Montgomery," he said finally, "with the sworn statements from Mr. Benjamin Jennings and Dr. Miller confirming your identity and the will being properly filed, I see no reason to withhold the deed." He pushed a document across the desk. "This is a newly drawn deed in your name. The claim is now officially yours." Theresa's hand trembled slightly as she accepted the paper. "Thank you, Mr. Winters." As they left the land office, Theresa turned to Adam, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I don't know how to thank you. Without your help, I would have lost everything if I had survived at all." Adam smiled down at her. "Seeing you recover has been thanks enough." "Have you thought about what you'll do with the claim now?" "I'm not entirely sure," she admitted as they walked slowly down the main street. "Uncle Samuel's cabin on the property is supposedly quite basic. Benjamin suggested I might consider selling to one of the mining companies, especially if there's silver as rumored." "That would give you a fresh start," Adam agreed, ignoring the unexpected pang he felt at the thought of her leaving Keeler. "You could return to Philadelphia if you wished." Theresa was quiet for a moment. "I'm not sure I want to go back east," she said finally. "There's nothing for me there now, and despite everything, I've grown fond of Keeler." She glanced up at him, and its people. Adam felt his heart quicken at the look in her eyes. "I'm glad to hear that." That evening at dinner, Benjamin raised an unexpected subject. "I heard something interesting at the mine today," he said, passing a bowl of potatoes to Martha. "Seems the Blackridge gang was spotted in Lone Pine yesterday." Adam's attention sharpened. "The men who attacked Theresa?" Benjamin nodded grimly. "By all accounts, they were bragging about their latest score mentioned taking papers from a fancy Eastern lady on the trail to Keeler." Theresa paled, her hand tightening around her fork. "They're so close." "Lone Pine's only 20 miles south," Benjamin confirmed. "But Sheriff Williams in Lone Pine sent word to our Sheriff Donnelly. They're organizing a posse to go after the gang." Adam's expression hardened. "I'd like to join that posse." "Adam, no," Theresa exclaimed, her voice tight with fear. Those men are dangerous. Which is exactly why they need to be brought to justice, Adam replied. They nearly killed you, Theresa, and they'll do the same or worse to others if they're not stopped. But why does it have to be you? She asked, her distress evident. Adam reached across the table, briefly touching her hand. Because I know what they did to you. I found you on that trail. I can identify the property they stole from you. Benjamin cleared his throat. The posse leaves at first light tomorrow. Sheriff Donnelly would welcome an extra gun, I'm sure. That night, Adam stood on the porch of his cousin's house, staring up at the star-filled sky. He heard the door open behind him and turned to see Theresa stepping outside, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the evening chill. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked softly. She shook her head, coming to stand beside him at the railing. "I keep thinking about tomorrow, about you riding with that posse." "I'll be careful," he promised. "It's not just that." Theresa turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "These past weeks you've become important to me, Adam, more than I expected, more than perhaps I should admit." Adam's heart raced at her words. "Theresa, please, let me finish," she said quickly. "I know we've known each other only a short time and under unusual circumstances. But I can't bear the thought of you putting yourself in danger because of me." Adam gently took her hands in his. "It's not just because of what they did to you, though that would be reason enough. Men like that threaten everything decent folks are trying to build out here. They need to be stopped." "I understand that," Theresa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just promise me you'll come back." "I promise," Adam said solemnly. Then, acting on impulse, he leaned down and placed a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Get some rest. I'll see you before I leave in the morning." As dawn broke over the mountains, Adam saddled his horse behind Benjamin's stable. He checked his Winchester rifle and made sure his Colt revolver was cleaned and loaded. He had just finished securing his provisions when he heard footsteps approaching. Theresa stood in the yard, fully dressed despite the early hour. She carried a small package wrapped in cloth. "I wanted to see you off," she said, approaching him, "and to give you this." She handed him the package. Adam unwrapped it to find a handkerchief, neatly embroidered with his initials in blue thread. "I worked on it last night," Theresa explained, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "It's not much, but—" "It's perfect," Adam said, carefully tucking it into his breast pocket. "Thank you." They stood in silence for a moment, neither wanting to say goodbye. Finally, Adam mounted his horse. "I'll be back in a few days," he said, looking down at her. "Be safe," she replied, her hands clasped tightly together. Adam tipped his hat to her and rode toward the center of town, where the posse was gathering. Sheriff Donnelly, a grizzled man with a silver mustache, nodded in greeting as Adam approached. "Benjamin said you'd be joining us," the sheriff said. "You found the Montgomery woman." "Yes, sir," Adam confirmed, "and I can identify the stolen property if we recover it." "Good." The sheriff gestured to the 8 other men assembled. "This here's a determined bunch. We've all had enough of the Blackridge gang terrorizing honest folks." The posse set out as the sun crested the eastern mountains, following the trail south toward Lone Pine. According to the latest reports, the gang had been seen heading into the hills east of town, toward an old abandoned mining camp that offered numerous hiding places. The ride was long and dusty, with the men speaking little as they focused on the task ahead. They reached Lone Pine by midday, where Sheriff Williams and 3 of his deputies joined their group. The combined force now numbered 14, a formidable posse by any standard. "Recent tracks suggest they're holed up in Whiskey Gulch," Sheriff Williams informed them as they regrouped outside Lone Pine. "It's rough country with plenty of places for ambush. We'll need to approach carefully." The men continued east into the foothills, the terrain growing increasingly rugged as they ascended. By late afternoon, they had reached the entrance to Whiskey Gulch, a narrow canyon flanked by steep rock walls. "We'll leave the horses here with 2 men," Sheriff Donnelly decided. "The rest of us will proceed on foot. Less noise that way." Adam checked his weapons one final time before following the others into the gulch. They moved slowly, keeping to cover where possible, communicating with hand signals rather than words. A mile into the canyon, they spotted smoke rising from behind a rocky outcropping, signs of a campfire. Sheriff Williams motioned for them to spread out, encircling the camp. Adam took position behind a boulder, his rifle ready. From his vantage point, he could see 3 men lounging around the fire. One wore a distinctive silver belt buckle that caught the light, a rattlesnake design, just as Theresa had described. Sheriff Donnelly gave the signal, and the posse members emerged from cover simultaneously, weapons trained on the startled outlaws. "Blackridge gang, you're surrounded," Sheriff Donnelly bellowed. "Drop your weapons and put your hands where we can see them." What followed was chaos. One of the outlaws immediately reached for his gun, prompting a volley of shots from the posse. The man fell, clutching his chest. The second outlaw threw down his weapon, hands raised in surrender. The third man, the one with the rattlesnake buckle, darted toward a narrow side passage in the canyon wall. Adam, positioned closest to the escape route, gave chase without hesitation. The passage twisted through the rock, barely wide enough for a man to navigate. Adam could hear the outlaw's boots pounding on stone ahead of him. Emerging from the passage, he found himself in a small box canyon with sheer walls on 3 sides. The outlaw stood at the far end, trapped, his hand hovering near his holster. "It's over," Adam called, training his rifle on the man. "There's nowhere to run." The outlaw, a wiry man with a week's growth of beard, sneered. "You must be that girl's rescuer. She weren't supposed to survive." Adam felt a cold fury rise in him at the casual cruelty in the man's voice. "You left her to die slow. That was your mistake." "One of many, it seems," the outlaw replied, then suddenly drew his pistol. Adam fired first, his bullet striking the outlaw in the shoulder. The man's shot went wide, ricocheting off the canyon wall. He dropped to his knees, his gun falling from nerveless fingers. "You'll hang for what you did to her," Adam said as he approached cautiously, keeping his rifle trained on the wounded man. "Reuben's the one you want," the outlaw gasped, clutching his bleeding shoulder. "He's the one who beat her, said we needed to make an example of her." "Reuben?" Adam demanded. "Our leader, the one in the black duster. He ain't here rode to Panamint City yesterday with our biggest score yet." Adam bound the outlaw's hands behind his back and marched him out of the box canyon. In the main camp, he found the posse had the situation well in hand. The first outlaw was dead, while the second sat bound beside the fire, glaring sullenly at his captors. "Found this one trying to escape," Adam reported to Sheriff Donnelly, shoving his prisoner toward the others. "Says their leader Reuben headed to Panamint City yesterday." Sheriff Donnelly nodded grimly. "This one told us the same. We'll send word ahead to the law there." He eyed the 2 captured men. "Start searching their belongings. Let's see if any of Miss Montgomery's property can be recovered." The posse methodically went through the outlaw's saddlebags and bedrolls. Adam discovered a leather wallet containing various documents, among them the original deed to Samuel Montgomery's claim. "This belongs to Miss Montgomery," he confirmed, carefully storing it in his own saddlebag. Any sign of a pocket watch, gold with an engraving on the inside cover. One of the deputies held up a tarnished gold timepiece. "This it?" Adam examined it and nodded. "Her father's watch. She'll be glad to have it back." They found little else of value. The gang had likely spent or hidden their money and more valuable items elsewhere. The two prisoners were securely bound and mounted on their own horses for the journey back to Keeler, where they would stand trial for their crimes. The return journey was considerably more cheerful than the outward one, with the posse members satisfied with their success. Adam rode quietly, thinking about Theresa and how she would react to the news that two of her attackers had been captured and her property recovered. They reached Keeler 2 days later, tired but triumphant. A crowd gathered in the main street as the posse rode in with their prisoners. Adam scanned the faces, looking for Theresa, but didn't see her among the onlookers. After the prisoners were safely delivered to the jail, Adam headed directly to Benjamin's house, the recovered deed and watch secure in his pocket. He found Theresa sitting on the porch, a book open in her lap, though she didn't appear to be reading it. When she saw him, her face lit up with relief and joy. She rose quickly, the book tumbling forgotten to the floor. "Adam, you're back," she exclaimed, hurrying down the porch steps to meet him. Adam dismounted, smiling broadly. "As I promised." Without hesitation, Theresa threw her arms around him in a spontaneous embrace. After a moment of surprise, Adam returned the hug, holding her gently. "You're safe," she murmured against his chest. "I've been so worried." "I had something important to come back for," Adam replied softly. Theresa drew back slightly, looking up at him with questioning eyes. In answer, Adam reached into his pocket and withdrew her father's watch and the deed. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You found them. The gang had them. We captured 2 of the men who attacked you," Adam explained. "The leader wasn't with them, but the sheriff has sent word to Bandits City, where he was reportedly headed." Tears welled in Theresa's eyes as she accepted the watch, running her thumb over its worn surface. "This was the last thing my father gave me before he died. I thought I'd never see it again." "There's more," Adam said, handing her the deed. "The original deed to your uncle's claim. Now you have double proof of ownership." Theresa looked from the recovered items to Adam's face, her expression filled with gratitude and something deeper that made his heart race. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." The next few weeks brought significant changes to Keeler and to Theresa's life. True to Sheriff Donnelly's word, the leader of the Blackridge gang, Reuben Harker, was apprehended in Bandits City while trying to sell stolen goods. He was returned to Keeler to face justice alongside his captured companions. Theresa attended the trial, bravely testifying about the attack, despite having to relive the traumatic experience. Her testimony, combined with the evidence recovered and the confessions of the lesser gang members seeking leniency, ensured that all 3 men were convicted. Reuben Harker and the man with the rattlesnake buckle were sentenced to hang, while the 3rd gang member received 20 years in prison. With justice served and her property secure, Theresa turned her attention to her future in Keeler. She used some of her savings to make improvements to her uncle's cabin, making it habitable while she considered her options for the mining claim. Throughout this time, Adam remained at her side, offering support, advice, and increasingly, companionship that transcended friendship. Their feelings for each other grew naturally, fostered by shared experiences and mutual respect. One evening in late summer, Adam invited Theresa for a ride to her claim. The property sat in the foothills east of town, with Samuel's small cabin nestled against the mountainside. Recent surveys had confirmed the presence of a promising silver vein running through the claim. As they sat on the cabin's porch watching the sunset paint the distant mountains in shades of gold and purple, Adam finally voiced the thoughts that had been on his mind for weeks. "I received a letter from my former employer yesterday," he said. He's offering me a permanent position managing his ranch near Carson City. Theresa's smile faltered slightly. Oh, that sounds like a good opportunity. It is, Adam agreed. Steady work, good pay. Everything I've been working toward. When would you leave? Theresa asked, her voice carefully neutral. Adam turned to face her directly. That depends on you. On me. Confusion clouded her green eyes. Theresa, these past months have been the most meaningful of my life. Finding you on that trail, as terrible as the circumstances were, brought me to where I was supposed to be. He took her hand in his. I don't want to leave Keeler without you. Understanding dawned in her expression, followed by a radiant smile. Adam Jennings, are you asking me to go with you? I'm asking for more than that, he said, his voice husky with emotion. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small ring, a simple silver band set with a single modest diamond. I'm asking you to be my wife. Theresa's free hand flew to her mouth, her eyes widening in surprise and joy. Adam. I know it might seem fast, he continued quickly, and if you need time to consider, yes, she interrupted, tears of happiness spilling onto her cheeks. Yes, I'll marry you. Adam's face broke into a broad smile as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he drew her into his arms, kissing her with all the love and tenderness he felt. When they finally parted, Theresa rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. I never imagined when I set out for the West that I would find not just a new home, but the love of my life. Life has a way of surprising us, Adam replied, stroking her hair. When I found you on that trail, barely breathing, something told me that I couldn't give up on you, that you were somehow important to my future. I just didn't know then how important you would become. They married 3 weeks later in Keeler's small church, with Benjamin standing as Adam's best man and Martha attending Theresa. The entire town turned out for the celebration, having followed the dramatic story of their meeting and courtship with interest and approval. After the wedding, they sold Theresa's claim to a mining company for a sum that, while not a fortune, provided them with a comfortable start for their new life together. Combined with Adam's savings and the promise of steady employment, their future looked secure. The journey to Carson City took them along the same trail where Adam had found Theresa months earlier. As they passed the spot, now transformed by autumn colors, Theresa reached for Adam's hand. It's strange to think that the worst day of my life led to the best decision I ever made, she reflected. Which was? Adam asked with a smile. Trusting you, she replied simply. When I opened my eyes and saw you there, something told me you were different, that you were someone I could believe in. And I never stopped believing in you, Adam said, squeezing her hand. From that first moment, I knew you were a fighter, too strong to give up on. The ranch near Carson City proved to be everything Adam had hoped for: a sprawling operation with good grazing land and a comfortable house that soon became their home. Adam's experience and work ethic quickly earned him the respect of the owner and the ranch hands he supervised. Theresa, meanwhile, found her own place in their new community. Her sewing skills, honed during her years in Philadelphia, were in high demand among the local families. She established a small dressmaking business that brought her both income and satisfaction. Their first year of marriage passed in a contented blur of work, building their home and deepening their relationship. They faced the usual challenges of newlyweds, adjusting to each other's habits and quirks, learning to compromise, planning for their future together. In the spring of their second year together, Theresa shared news that brought Adam immeasurable joy. They were expecting their first child. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, with Theresa blooming under Adam's attentive care. Their son, Samuel Benjamin Jennings, was born on a crisp autumn day, named for Theresa's uncle and Adam's cousin, who had both played crucial roles in bringing them together. The baby had Adam's strong features and Theresa's striking green eyes, a perfect blend of his parents. "He's perfect," Adam whispered as he held his son for the first time, overwhelming love filling his chest. "He's strong," Theresa agreed, tired but radiant after the birth. "Like his father." "And determined," Adam added with a gentle smile. "Like his mother, who refused to give up even when bandits left her for dead." Life settled into a new rhythm with young Samuel at its center. The child thrived in the healthy ranch environment, growing into a curious, energetic toddler who delighted in following his father around the property and sitting in his mother's lap as she worked on her sewing. 3 years after Samuel's birth, the family welcomed a daughter, Emma Martha Jennings, completing their family circle. Emma was a peaceful baby with auburn curls like her mother's and a sweet disposition that charmed everyone she met. As the years passed, the ranch prospered under Adam's management. Eventually, the aging owner offered to sell it to Adam at a fair price, recognizing that no one would care for the property as well as the man who had already invested so much of himself in it. With careful planning and the savings they had accumulated, Adam and Theresa became the proud owners of the Silver Creek Ranch. What had once been just a job became their legacy, something they could pass on to their children. On the 10th anniversary of the day Adam found Theresa on the trail, they stood together on the porch of their ranch house, watching Samuel and Emma playing in the yard with their dog, a faithful collie named Buck. "You ever think about how differently our lives might have turned out?" Theresa asked, leaning against her husband's strong shoulder. "Every day," Adam admitted, his arm tightening around her waist. "If I'd taken a different trail that day, if I'd passed by thinking it was too late to help you. Or if those bandits had been more thorough in their cruelty," Theresa added softly. Adam turned to face her, his hands gently framing her face. "But they weren't. And I didn't pass by. And every day since then has been a gift I never expected to receive. When I came west, I was looking for a new beginning," Theresa said, her eyes reflecting the same love they had held for him all these years. "I never dreamed that beginning would start with being left for dead on a dusty trail." "Sometimes the darkest moments lead us to the brightest futures," Adam replied, before kissing her tenderly. Their life together wasn't without challenges, droughts that threatened the ranch, illnesses that frightened them, the normal disagreements that all couples face. But the foundation of their relationship, built during those crucial early days when Adam refused to give up on a stranger he found barely breathing on the trail, proved strong enough to weather every storm. As their children grew into teenagers, Samuel showing a natural affinity for ranching and Emma developing her mother's talent for needlework and design, Adam and Theresa took pride in the life they had built together. Their home became a gathering place for friends and neighbors, known for its warmth and hospitality. 20 years after their fateful meeting, Adam and Theresa returned to Keeler for the first time since their departure. The town had grown, prospering from the mines that dotted the surrounding mountains. Benjamin had passed away years earlier, but Martha still lived in the same house, now surrounded by children and grandchildren of her own. During their visit, Adam and Theresa took a day to ride out to the spot on the trail where their story began. The landscape had changed little, the same rocks, the same distant view of the mountains, the same unforgiving sun. "It seems smaller somehow," Theresa remarked as they stood looking at the place where she had lain dying all those years ago. "In my nightmares it was vast and endless." "You still have those nightmares?" Adam asked gently. Theresa shook her head. "Not for many years now. They faded as our life together grew stronger." She took his hand, her fingers entwining with his as naturally as they had for 2 decades. "This place no longer holds fear for me, only gratitude." "Gratitude?" Adam raised an eyebrow. "Yes," Theresa said firmly. "For as terrible as that day was, it brought you to me, and every moment of pain was worth it for the lifetime of joy that followed." Adam gathered her into his arms, still marveling at how perfectly she fit against him after all these years. "I thank God every day that I found you in time," he murmured against her hair, which now showed strands of silver among the auburn. "And I thank God that you refused to give up on me," Theresa replied, "even when it would have been easier to ride on and leave me to my fate." They returned to Silver Creek Ranch with renewed appreciation for the life they had built together. Their children were growing up, Samuel courting a neighbor's daughter and showing every indication of wanting to follow in his father's footsteps. Emma preparing to attend a women's college in San Francisco to study design. As they entered their 3rd decade together, Adam and Theresa faced the future with the same determination and faith that had characterized their relationship from the beginning. They had weathered storms, celebrated triumphs, raised children, and built a home filled with love and respect. "Do you have any regrets?" Adam asked Theresa one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, a ritual they had maintained throughout their marriage. Theresa considered the question thoughtfully before shaking her head. "Not a single one. Every step of our journey together, even the painful ones, brought us to where we are now." She smiled up at him, the lines at the corners of her eyes only enhancing her beauty in his view. "And where we are is exactly where we're meant to be." Adam nodded, taking her hand in his, a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over their years together. "You know, when I found you on that trail, I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't give up on you. And you never did," Theresa said softly. "I never will," Adam amended, his voice firm with the certainty of a promise kept and renewed daily for 20 years. "Not as long as I draw breath." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in the same gold and purple hues they had admired on the day of his proposal, Adam and Theresa Jennings sat together in comfortable silence, their lives as intertwined as their fingers. From the darkest moment of Theresa's life had sprung a love story neither could have imagined, one that began when a cowboy refused to give up on a woman left for dead, and continued to unfold with each passing day. Each shared joy and sorrow, each sunrise and sunset witnessed together. It was not the future Theresa had envisioned when she boarded a westbound train in Philadelphia all those years ago. Nor was it the life Adam had expected when he set out on the trail to Keeler that fateful day. But it was richer, deeper, and more fulfilling than either could have dreamed, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of love born in the most unlikely of circumstances.